Joining me now is Wrong Speak Publishing founder Adam B. Coleman. Adam, welcome. The Supreme Court is currently deliberating the legality of state bans on gender transition treatments for minors as it rules on a challenge to Tennessee's state law, a case that sparked crowds of protesters outside the court. What kind of implications could the verdict in this case could have?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this case is going to be felt all across the country. There's multiple states that want to ban any sort of medical transitions when it comes to minors who consider themselves trans or maybe their parents want to do it for whatever particular reason, and in using trans as the reasoning. I think this is going to be kind of, I don't think this is going to be as simple. A lot of people think because it's a more conservative leaning judiciary that it's going to just go in the way of what most Republicans or conservatives want. But I think from a legality standpoint, there may be some true trying to measure if this is something that is constitutionally sound. They're trying to attack this from a equal access situation, but it also comes down to is transgenderism or being a transgender person another classification just like a man is or a woman is. And I think this is part of the confusion of the entire thing. In some ways, it is seen as binary when they try to argue it. In other ways, they try to make it sound fluid, which if it's fluid, then it's not something that is absolutely certain. And it goes back to just being utterly confusing. So I think this is going to be a very interesting outcome when it's all said and done.
Well, there's another really interesting case playing out over there at this time as well. Daniel Penny's trial. The jury continues to hear and see evidence. Now, this is the former Marine who killed a 30-year-old homeless man by putting him in a chokehold after he allegedly shouted death threats on the subway. Penny's trial has divided the nation, I think it's fair to say, and he's either been branded a hero or a villain. New York City Mayor Eric Adams has come out in his defense. Take a look.
Those passengers were afraid. I've been on the subway system. I know what it is as a police officer to wrestle or fight with someone. We're on the subway where we're hearing someone talking about hurting people, killing people. You have someone on that subway who was responding.
Now, what do you think the implications of this verdict could be?
Well, if he's found guilty, what that sends to every New Yorker, and honestly, many people who live in big cities, is that defending yourself is a problem. And on top of that, being someone who is trying to sacrifice themselves for other people who are scared or in danger can put you in legal trouble. And I think in a situation like this, where it's not like Daniel Penny was holding on to him and he was by himself, and people were outraged that he climbed on top of this man and held him down. He was helped, and people were thankful. And when you have the mayor of New York City saying, yeah, it's dangerous out there, I have no problem with what he did. And other people from New York, I'm just outside of New York City. I know plenty of New Yorkers who take the subway, and I know plenty of New Yorkers who stop taking the subway for a reason. The place is dangerous. They not just dangerous because of criminals, but because of mentally unstable people just like this man. And I'm empathetic to his death. I don't think anybody deserves to die, but I also don't think that anyone should be set on the streets and just allowed to fester in their own downfall, just like this man was. But I also don't think that he should have just been, locked up and sent back out, locked up and sent back out for other people to deal with. So I think this is an unfortunate situation all the way around. But if he's found guilty over something like this, I think that sends a terrible signal. We should be allowed to defend ourselves. And I think the radical Democrats and leftists who have infected the judiciary and within New York City, the DA's office, all these people, what they're telling us is that they really don't care about the safety of New Yorkers. They really don't care about the safety of Americans. We should be able to protect ourselves from someone who is dangerous. And every person on that train agreed that that man was dangerous.
Well, it'll be really interesting to see what happens out of that one. Now, MSNBC host Rachel Maddow is reportedly furious with her Morning Joe colleagues for meeting with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago after he won the presidential election. Do you think there's much truth to these reports?
I mean, it wouldn't shock me. I mean, when the basis of your career has been to make Donald Trump appear like Hitler, to make Donald Trump seem like the worst man in human history. And then you see your colleagues who change tune and at least sit down with the man. Doesn't mean that they support him. At least, I don't know, treat him like a typical politician. Yeah, I could see someone having a problem with that. So honestly, it could be true. I know these are, speculations, but it would not shock me whatsoever. This woman has spread every false narrative, every bit of propaganda, especially anything revolving around Russia, that has never come to fruition, that she never apologizes for, acts like she didn't even say the very thing that she said. So yeah, I truly believe this woman has propagandized herself to the point where she thinks anyone who even mentions the man's name, like he's Voldemort or something, she'll treat them with a huge amount of disdain.
Well, speaking of MSNBC, its primetime audience has dipped 53% and CNN's 47% since the week before the election, while Fox News has largely held on to its audience. Adam, do you see this as the anti-Trump movement losing some of its momentum?
Well, yes. For one, they were really telling people that she's got it in the bag. And this honestly goes back to the disconnect of the mainstream media in the United States. And this is the reason why Donald Trump won and won so heavily. They're completely disconnected from the average American and what they're experiencing. These are people who are millionaires. You mentioned Rachel Maddow is a millionaire on television, tell you to be scared and, white supremacy this. And the biggest issue in America is fascism. When most people that I run into, fascism isn't even like in their top 10 or top 20, right? The issues that they care about is, can they afford food? Can they afford gas? The state of the economy. Are they safe in their neighborhoods? Common sense, political things. And even more so, when it comes to safety in the economy, that wraps up into the border. A lot of Americans care about it, especially people in the Northeast and in New York City, because the problems at the border have made it to their front door. So these are things that regular Americans care about, but all they want to talk about is Trump is bad. And they want to give a false narrative about this man. And I think a lot of people have come to the conclusion that, hey, if majority of Americans are supporting this man, is it really that the country is bad or we're disconnected from the country? And I think when you follow these false prophets, you end up in strange territories. So I think it's just a lot of Americans realizing that the propaganda that they're being fed is exactly that, and that they're ultimately lying, and they've been fear-mongering them for years about this man. And I'm including myself as a former Democrat, believe many of these lies. And I think maybe this is a time for people to disconnect and reevaluate the information that they've taken in.
Well, let's see if these media companies actually take that in and make some changes, or whether the lack of self-awareness continues. Adam B. Coleman, thank you for your time.